All right, we're here with Susan White Livermore. Thanks very much for joining. This is all about morning routines and anything related to performance and what we can do to set up our day to be the best. And the idea here is you know, we talked just briefly before we started to record. The idea is, you know, anytime we can do something to set up our day better, well, if we do that each day, it's going to make each week and each month better. And more than that, then when we're better, then we're better for the people around us, and it becomes very contagious. So, you know, I'm really anxious to hear about your thoughts on this. I know you're big on entrepreneurship and performance. So thanks very much for joining.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I look forward to
Yeah,
talking about this stuff.
yeah, for sure. Very good. So just before we get into, you know, your actual practices for what you do in the morning routine, can you share some of your thoughts around the idea of a morning routine, or even if it's midday or late day, that's not really the point. The point is share some of your thoughts on the importance and the thinking around these practices.
I don't know from my own experience. I think the reason why I started in particular is because by the end of the day, oftentimes prior to I do meditation and all this other stuff, exhausted by the end of the day, and starting to study some experts in terms of how to get to a thing called flow. So your day goes fairly easy. I started to understand that meditation and that sort of thing was really important. And the reason why they were arguing that it's so important is because you are downloading all day long everybody else's opinions, whether it be media or friends, family. You're getting at you constantly um, different opinions, be it negative, positive, and your ability to decipher what fits with you and what you can deal with and what you want to deal with is different per person. But if you can bring yourself to a state of relaxation and slowing it down and
Mm,
not uh, getting stuck in I call it stuck in my head. If you can, I call it pre-paving. So if you can start your day so that you are already at a lower level, that you're relaxed, the solutions to your day are going to come much easier. You'll be able to say, you know what, normally this thing that came at me, normally I would freak out about, but I
mm,
know that it's not really that important. It's not going to take me down. I have the ability to easily push it away, so to speak, and allow it to be where it needs to be, accept it for what it is, and not freak out about it and not fixate on it, and move through my day the way I need to move through my day so that solutions come much easier to me. Because the minute I start fixating on something or getting consumed by something, which is really easy to happen,
yeah,
we have the world coming at us constantly, especially as entrepreneurs. The buck stops with you.
yeah.
So being able to pre-pave and slow yourself down before you even get started will allow you to make better decisions faster, easier. So I really believe that I can accomplish by doing this pre-paving, and I spend a significant amount of time pre-paving each day. I can accomplish in 3 hours what most people accomplish in 8 because I can make those decisions quickly. I sometimes work from intuition. That might be an off thing for some people, but it's a decision that I make from a place of feeling. And it's just, it may not be right for everybody, but it's right for me. And more often than not, when I can get to that place of making decisions from intuition, using my logic, but maybe I got two choices and I feel the one that fits best with me. Um, that's what helps make my day go so much faster and
Yeah.
easier and more productive. And it's a skill that we all have available to us, but when we start the day by hitting the ground running, we don't give ourselves that time to step back and check in. You
Yeah.
know, where are we at today? Am I nervous? Am I anxious? And what can I do to eliminate that before I start my day so that all the decisions I make come easier and smoother and that sort of. So that's why I set a morning practice.
Yeah. It reminds me the statement, the space between stimulus and response is where all the magic happens, right? And if we can set up a practice, just like you said, to kind of keep ourselves in balance and keep ourselves grounded, it kind of, I think, increases that space, right? And so,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the more I know for myself, the more ground down I get, and the more I push, and the more I drive, and especially if that comes at the sacrifice of balance, then that space gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's where I think this is, another way to kind of articulate what you're saying is the smaller that space gets, the less in touch you are with that magic intuition that you're describing, right?
100%.
Yeah,
100%. We get fixated and we start digging and making decisions that don't serve us. We
yeah,
go head in the wrong direction often. So
yeah. And you mentioned that some learning and education and kind of research, you alluded to that. Is there some influences that have been kind of stronger than others that you want to share?
um the truth be told, the very first coach I ever hired, yeah, I think it was the first coach, I found him, he found me, so to speak. And he was the one who let me tell you who this person is, because it's just sort of fascinating to me. um, I was struggling with my business. I was grinding it out. I was very successful, won a ton of awards, got into magazines, but truthfully, I was absolutely miserable. And so I met this guy at a networking event, a very large real estate investing networking event. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, either I'm going to quit this business and find something else that I'm not living like this,
Yeah.
or I'm going to find a coach that can help me through this, because maybe I'm just missing something. I don't see the forest for the trees. So I'm at this event thinking I'm going to hire a coach. And there was a particular coach that I thought I wanted to meet. And I'm standing in line because that coach is busy. And the gentleman behind me starts talking to me. And we're drumming up a conversation. I tell him what I'm doing. He tells me what he's been up to. And this guy had built, by the time he was 35, built 3 companies, brought them all public, was worth like 7-8 figures. And just, I was like in awe. And I'm like, so what do you do now? Because he had sold the businesses. He's like, I coach Fortune 500 companies, and I teach at Schulich School of Business, and the odd time I'll bring in a student of non-high class stature, or not high class, but someone average like me. And so I was just intrigued by him. But what I didn't understand is he teaches, so I hired him. He teaches Fortune 500 C-suite companies how to build their business with joy. And so my very first meeting with him, he's like, yeah, we're going to do a meditation. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, we're just going to slow it down. And I'm like, no, I want to drive. I want to make this easier. He's like, no, we're going to slow it down. Then he gets to the point after a couple of meetings, he's like, I need you to take the entire summer off. Like, what?
Really, huh?
He needed me to slow down, to understand that once I slowed down, ideas would come to me that would solve my problems, because I had given myself that space to draw information to me, as opposed to grinding out and just add it. You'll eventually get there, but how much energy are you expending, and how much effort, and at what cost? So he was probably my number one, just to expose me to the world of meditation and slowing it down and connecting with who you are, and reminding us that there's a purpose beyond making lots of money, that making lots of money without fulfillment and joy and abundance and fun isn't really worth it. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I worked with Bob Proctor, which was amazing experience. And he learning about the law of attraction. He does some meditations, but he's really worked about there's these laws that if you can control the way you think, um, which uh, we can change our reality. So if we control the way we think, we can impact the beliefs that we have, which will ultimately change our reality. So I
Yeah.
did a lot of time learning with him, and those are probably the two so that I was so influenced by.
Oh, very cool. It's really neat how you were attracted to that coach, like speaking of Proctor and the law of attraction, drawn to that coach, and then it was something very different from what you expected, but probably exactly what you needed.
It was 100% what I needed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And with Proctor, have you looked into Dispenza at all, or maybe not yet?
I'm aware of
Yeah, yeah,
dispense. Um, I go where I'm drawn. Like right now I'm fascinated. I read a lot and listen to a lot to Abraham Hicks, which is very much about sort of the law of attraction.
yeah.
Um, I love, oh, what's his name? His name escapes me right now. Mm, I'm not going to come up with it.
Happens to me
Um,
all the time.
I can't even think of his book. But the concept is very much about just letting go, not having to have things a certain way. And
Yeah,
the
yeah,
minute you can let go of needing things a certain way, you'll see all different opportunities of how things could be that are actually better than the way you really wanted them to be.
yeah, yeah.
But when we fixate on the way something should be, we lose all the other opportunities. And his name escapes me. It's going to drive me crazy.
No, that's all right. 2 a.m. this morning, it'll come to you, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Right. No, I will get off this call and look it up. That's it'll force me to.
Well, geez, that one hits close to home for me as well. Like for somebody like myself who tends to be a little more on the analytical side, coming out of technology where you live and die by your ability to see things coming, predict them, and anticipate, mitigate the risk, and manage to them, it can create this kind of mode of operating. And all those things are great when you use them as tools for your own,
Yeah.
well-being, I
Yeah.
guess, if you want to
Yeah.
say that. But the idea of, looking toward the target and being far more fluid and letting things happen the way is, I mean, I think this is where you strike this balance that you were talking about before we jumped on here. Of you're still making the steps, you're still on the path, you're still on that same trajectory to get where you're trying to go, but you're having a ton more fun, right? And you're not fighting so hard to get there.
Yeah,
Right.
100%. Those logical skills, they're a talent. You can't build these businesses without those logical skills. But these other skills of the fluidity
Yeah,
of the using intuition, they just make it a heck of a lot more fun,
yeah,
easier, and get you unstuck faster.
yeah.
So, but we as a society really only put value on the logic ones. So
That's
this other stuff is called
right.
woo woo.
Yeah, that's right.
I love the woo woo. It really works for me. I
Yeah,
use both. Um, Logic to say, yep, that's the type of deal I want to do. And then I go into intuition. There's something about this deal that I can't put to words right now,
yeah,
but I feel it's off. It's usually in how a person, I'm like, there's something off about this person that in my belief, I can't do a great deal when I don't trust that other person. And so it's just being able to use your intuition when that's off. And um, but the two to me are what makes an amazing business that can
yeah.
bring the fun and the joy and all that other stuff into it.
I'm interested in what you might think about this. So I've never, I don't think ever, made a decision or assessed something with intuition how to be wrong. However, the trick for me is in deciding what is true intuition and what is that, what is that internal intuition versus something also internal and strong like fear or something like that. That is such a tough thing to decipher.
Excellent question. Excellent question. And I've probably been searching for, how do you know when it is
Yeah.
an intuition and when fear? And for me, I always have a coach, always, always, always. And lately, I've been hiring coaches that, well, I guess from the beginning, I've had intuition coaches, but I'm sort of drawn to the people that are really intuitive. And what I'm learning from them is that when it's a full on intuition, when you are in your center, there's no doubt. It's just
Mm,
a feeling of knowing. It's there is inspiration, there is excitement, there is um, joy. But when it's coming from that place of fear, there's doubt behind it. You're stuck in your head and the
mm,
questions don't stop.
right.
So it's taken me a long time to figure out the difference between, and I'm not an expert at it, but that is really where I'm aspiring to go when I get to that space of just knowing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can do that sometimes through intuition, but not always.
Yeah. Yeah.
Depends on how stuck in my head I am.
Right.
And it happens. Like even when you practice every day, like some days you just don't get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And back to the importance of a daily practice to kind of keep that space around you, that groundedness within you, so that you can decipher better, right? Which is intuition and which is some other feeling that I probably shouldn't use as a compass, right?
Yeah.
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 That's interesting. I probably hadn't heard or focused enough on the idea of those peripheral feelings being the kind of the barometer for, hey, is this intuition or something, some lower frequency kind of
Mm-hmm.
guidance
And
system.
it's a frequency thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting. So if you would, we've talked some about the philosophy behind the morning routine, which is amazing, and where it all starts, right? Would you mind sharing some of
Yeah.
the daily practices that you have?
Yeah. I, because I have the flexibility to set my day the way I want to set my day, I wake up when my body wants to wake up, which is usually around 6:30. I don't set an alarm,
Mm,
and I'm not like, I know a lot of people do the 5 a.m. club. Just has never been it for me. I always allow my body to do what it needs to do because I'm big on supporting, as much as I'm wanting to support my mental health, and my body is kind of what helps me decipher where I'm off on mental health as well. So I give it the amount of sleep that it needs. Start at about, it's usually around 6:30. I start with lemon water because your body has gone 12 hours without liquids, without um, fluids. And to me, that's the first thing I want to do at the beginning of the day. It's a health thing. I grab my coffee and I set an intention of where I want to go, both for the day and for my meditation. I
mm,
set up a half an hour, usually meditation, and I time it. But strangely enough, I usually open my eyes 5 to 15 seconds before the alarm goes off.
really? Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's just you feel. Um, and I do a method of meditation that it's called the Silva method. I learned it from Vishen Lakiani off of Mind Valley.
Okay.
Really loved his method of just slowing down and having a system of how you're going to slow down. So
Mm,
he kind of has you sit up straight and you're looking up, I don't know, at a 45-degree angle, eyes closed, but you're sort of looking up and you're imagining, when you watch the beginning of a movie, before the movie starts, and they'll do a countdown, they'll do three,
yeah, yeah.
and yeah, so I'll do three times in my head, and in that time I'm visualizing my body slowing down,
Mm,
and then I'll do two, and I'm visualizing myself in my happy place. Right now it's sitting on um a paddle board just floating in the lake, and
yeah.
that's where I visualize myself being. And then you're going to do one, 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 three together. And it's um, you kind of bringing the two, the mental and the physical, together. And then I do just a recap. I count down from 10, and I just imagine that this energy is coming down 10, 9, 8, until I hit 1. And then it's just complete relaxation. And then I go and I focus simply on my heart. I just put all of my energy thinking about my heart, imagining what the heartbeat would sound like. And then I move out from, once I've sort of connected with the heart, I imagine myself just expanding to the size of the room, expanding to the size of the city, and just out and out and out and out. And then I just allow what there hits a point where, and I wrote a post on this, where like I described it as, I'm sorry, this is the only way I can describe it, but like the aftermath or afterglow of the, can't believe I'm going to say this out loud, or orgasm within your heart that just kind of covers your body, right?
Right. You wrote a post on this?
I did.
Did you?
Because I couldn't figure out another way of describing the feeling that is occurring. Like, it's just complete relaxation and awesomeness.
Yeah.
And then I just allow for whatever to come up. And sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes I hear nothing. And sometimes there's just this voice that's like, you need to do this, and this is how you need to do it. And this is where the inspiration comes. And it's like, it'll say, I know you plan, like, today's about this. And it's just full on direction of what, and it doesn't happen every time, but sometimes if I set an intention, this sort of stuff comes up, and it's just a knowing, and it's an inspiration, and it drives me through my day. So I'll do that for half an hour, and I gave you like the full description of meditation for me.
Right.
And then from there, it's like I had just done a dream, so I'll sit down and journal whatever had come up for me, just because I don't want to forget the key things, because I'll also often get insight of something that I've been struggling with, and it's, so writing it down so I can refer back to it is key for me. And then, or there might be more coming up, and it just comes out in the hand. And sometimes I'll even, like, if I'm really stuck on something, I will write a question with my right hand, then hand the pen over to my left hand and let my left hand answer it. The left hand just forces you to slow down that much more.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
And stuff will come up that I'm like, I didn't realize I felt that way. Or I didn't realize I had anger around that thing. So I'll do that for however long, 20 minutes. I will nourish my body, which is usually just I'm not into eating a lot in the morning. Usually just a shake, like a vegan protein shake.
Yeah.
And then I'll head out for an hour and 15-minute walk, usually, of some sort. Yeah, so I really don't start my day by the time I've had a shower. It's 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's a normal day for me.
And so that stage in the meditation that you mentioned, so you were going through a process, and then you described that kind of post-euphoric glow. That then leads into, sometimes, not always, but a clarity of intention for the day. Is that post-euphoric glow, is that something that happens sometimes but not always, or is that like something that is an intentional thing that you do in the meditation that sometimes yields the clarity of intention for the day?
It doesn't always happen. If I am running high, like doing this, and if I'm stuck in my head, if I've got anxiety, rarely happens in the morning. Often I can get there in the morning, but if I'm high anxiety, something's just happened and I'm getting stuck in my head and I'm starting to worry or whatever, rarely can I get to that stage. I can usually just get enough to take the edge off.
Yeah,
right?
understood. Yep.
But that's why for me, doing it first thing in the morning is so valuable, because I haven't started my day. I haven't opened my email. I haven't had the world come at me. So
Mhm.
I get to sort of put my armor on before the world comes at me. I've had
Yeah.
my rest. I've had my regroup with my sleep, and I get to put my armor on, which is the meditation. And
Yeah.
I will do meditations throughout the day. If I'm having a day that just ain't going where I want it to go,
Yeah.
it's not unusual for me to do 2 and 3 a day.
Yeah. 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 That's awesome. And like you said, right, it's that vibrational frequency, and the, if you need one meditation to kind of be in that grounded place with the space around you that you need and execute, and with happiness and
Yeah.
good progress, and great. But if it's two or three, I like that idea of, you do what it takes to kind of make that vibrational frequency adjustment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I once had a coach, like I said to him, I don't really have time to do that. And he's like, the people that make time or have time probably only need 15 minutes. You need an hour.
Right. Right.
Because I wasn't making time for it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's to learn how to get into meditation, like it was that doesn't come overnight. Like it's a practice. And initially I wasn't even doing the meditation. He's like, stop trying to beat yourself up with the meditation. Do what it was, a walking meditation. Be in nature, just
Yeah. Yeah.
breathe in nature.
Yeah.
And eventually I got to the point where I could do a proper meditation.
Well, and to that point, like, so I've done transcendental, and I just finished actually an MBSR,
Yeah.
mindfulness, and I do a lot of walking in nature as well. It's just, for whatever reason,
Grounding.
I don't even need to understand it. It just is really good.
It's amazing.
But they all kind of work in that same kind of accrual methodology, right? Where the more you do it, the more consistent you are with it. It kind of builds and builds and builds. And like we said, that space between stimulus and response
Yeah.
gets kind
Yeah.
of bigger and more regulated, and more
Yeah.
predictable, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So how long, it sounds like, you've been flexing this muscle for quite a while. How long would you say you've been working on these routines?
2012 is when I started.
Okay. Yeah.
Didn't really get really good. It probably took me 4 years, to be honest. Now I think I fought it because I was like, this is ridiculous. I can't, I had paid for this guy, and I'm like, and I was really stuck in cognitive dissonance. Like this just doesn't match what I understand, success to be, but I'm drawn to this.
Yeah.
So I could have made it a heck of a lot easier on myself and just said, yeah, I'm going to learn this.
Yeah.
But there was this battle going on within me of
Yeah.
what I knew, what I believed to be true, and what I wanted, like what I was learning to be true. So
Yeah.
I don't think if you can, I don't think it has to be that way.
Right.
But I was stuck in the logic world that this doesn't make sense from everything I've learned.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
grind it out, you work harder. Something's not going your direction. You don't take a step back,
Yeah. 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 That's right. You run at it, right?
right? You dig harder, you put
Yeah.
more effort into it,
Yeah.
and to do the exact opposite had like this visceral reaction in me that, oh,
Yeah.
I don't think I can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in another, in a very broad sense, another case study for following your intuition, everything in your, in the kind of cognitive space was telling you to do one thing, but your intuition was telling you to follow another
Yeah,
path, which is exactly, again, what you needed, right?
it was a fun
Yeah.
battle for a while though.
Yeah. Battle of the Titans, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of funny that it was almost the opposite for me. The resistance, very similar, but I had an experience. When I was in California, I met somebody who was really, I know it sounds counterintuitive to say successful at meditation, but everything that you hope to get out of a meditation and yoga and wellness practice, he was exemplifying that, not intentionally, but just because that's where he was. And I was not, right.
Hmm.
I was
Hmm.
in a very different place, and fighting, and spending tons of effort with that fight and grind. And I was watching him in the same environment, and I could not help but notice. And so I talked to him like, what are you doing? How are you accomplishing this? So it was almost the inverse for me. I had this poster child for, what I was after. And then I resisted for years and years, and still am trying to, better that pursuit, and get to that kind of that place that I saw him in, which is, it's funny, right? It takes a long time.
Well, it's years of undoing
Yeah.
beliefs and training and raising that we have to undo, right?
Mm,
Like that's what we're up against.
yeah.
You know, you're lucky if you can come into this world and understand from day one that there's no need to grind it out.
Mm, yeah.
They're few and far between, but there are people that can do it unconsciously.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've always been envious of those that seem to somehow know that from an early age.
Yep,
Yeah.
I had to put the time in, but
Yeah.
I can pick those people out. Like they don't talk about intuition. They don't talk about um, uh, they just draw good fortune to themselves,
That's right. Yeah.
and 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 they're like, no, that's just the way it is. And you're like, no, you're doing something to make that happen. You just unconsciously.
Yeah.
And Bob Proctor taught me about that there are people that can unconsciously bring that ease and flow to themselves and
Yeah.
don't even
Yeah.
recognize that they're doing
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, that's such strong fuel to try and everything that I, try to accrue or learn or whatever, just pass that on to my kids so that, they can absorb it earlier and get, evolution, right? It's, I feel like
it.
a real
100%.
strong responsibility for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have to do the struggles that we go through.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I really only role model. I don't talk too much. I figure because they tune out when I start to talk, so I
Right.
just role model as much as
Yeah.
I possibly can.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're probably doing it in a better way than I am, because I probably
Mm.
talk too much.
I,
um,
you know, your kids, and you just do with what
yeah.
they what's going to work for them. So
Yeah. 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 So yeah, we're connected on social media, and we've obviously done lots together. You've spoken at my events. We've been on stage together.
hmm
Blah blah blah. But
hmm
one thing I noticed with what you post, it all seems to be grounded in values and principles, which resonates 100% with me. Just and the interesting thing there is that it's the alignment first and foremost is in the alignment toward values and principles, and that as a lifestyle. And then once you align on that, then it's a secondary alignment from there around the individual topics of conversation, and the fun debate. But I find that it's I like your posts because
thank you.
yeah, you can tell you've put some energy and thought into those, and you're sharing your values and principles, right? Uh, which is awesome. I think that's a reflection probably of what we're talking about today, if I had to guess.
Yeah. When I started being like open and honest, because some of them are relatively vulnerable, um, I just, yeah, that they're about speaking my truth and what's important to me. But my very first coach taught me to build core values,
Mm,
and so we spent a full day building core values, because when that intuition fails me, I can always go back to that core value, and I'm like, okay, I've got to make a decision here. Does
right.
it meet this core value? Does it meet this core value? Does it meet this core value? Does it meet? I got five of them. I don't have to go through all five. Um, and then then I can. There's another guide for me to use in terms of making decision when that intuition isn't as clear as I'd like it to be.
Yeah. 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 For
Mm-hmm.
sure. That's really good. And just as we wrap up, um, I don't know, like, what do you think of, so you've been doing this since 2012, roughly 9 years. What kind of difference has it made for you in terms of, that sliding door question, right? Like, what if you didn't go down this path versus now that you have? What kind of delta would you describe that as?
Um, my life is 100% different than what it was 9 years ago. Like, I live with ease and flow and joy, and I set a purpose to have ease, flow, and joy every single day. I didn't make decisions that I should have made a long time ago because of fear and all that sort of stuff. But when you can step out of and work from a place of joy and happiness, and you can make those decisions with easier flow.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't be the person I am today without it. And I feel like it is the drive. I love real estate investing. I'm good at it, love it, but this is really this stuff that we're talking about is
Yeah.
sort of my purpose and where I feel going forward. I am where I'm driven to support other people, and so my world would be completely different without it. And I'm beyond grateful to not only um, have learned it for myself, but be able to share it with other people and show them a different way of living that will get them out of their cages. Like, we are all in
Yeah.
cages, and show them that, yeah, you can have fun, abundance, and all the money you potentially ever wanted without grinding it out,
Mm.
without um, just being stuck.
Yeah. 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 Well, it's such a strong endorsement, right, to the pursuit itself, but also some of the concepts we're talking about. So 9 years later, this isn't, it makes my day 10% better. It's what you've just kind of said. I think if I'm hearing you right, is I'm a completely different person now as a result of this pursuit being a part of my life, which is huge, right? It couldn't be any bigger, I don't think.
And the best part about it is I can't go back. I know
Right.
too much now.
You can't unring that bell, that's for sure.
No. And
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's become my purpose, and to guide people to fun and joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So not only for
mhm.
you, but now how
it
you how
it's a
you
bigger
coach and how
picture.
you interact. Yeah. Yeah. For
It's
sure.
a much bigger picture now. hmm Which is
Well,
awesome.
yeah. That's amazing.
hmm
Well, thank you so much. I mean, I think you shared a ton of information and very freely and openly. So thank you for that. And yeah, I'll share how to get in touch with you, and I'm
Awesome.
sure people will love to. So thank you
Yeah.
again. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.